Another round of applause for the actors. For tonight, I'll start from this end. Stuart Sakarombe, Francis Nyakoa, Musa Saruro, Priscilla Mutendera, Rutendo Chigudu, Rumbizo Gunduza, Caroline Mashinga Izezi, and our reader for tonight was Tengiswe Siziva. Allow me to call the director on stage so that she can also help with the poster. And as is the tradition with our stage readings, is that we ask you a couple of questions to lead the discussion. So the first question is, what struck you about the play as you were hearing it? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Oh, can we see it? Yeah. Just what struck you, what moved you, what interested you as you heard the play? Yes.
I think what struck me was that everyone is ruined. And it's not just the ones who say I'm ruined who are ruined, or that one is ruined. And it was very moving because of the different interactions of different levels for people to recognize each other's pain and sorrow, and even the most difficult thing is to see how ruined are the men, because that's seldom actually seen, but actually that is almost more important to see even than how women are ruined. So I thought it was very, very moving in showing that in every single character. And I'm sorry it wasn't done about Chiazwa.
Well, the interesting thing about stories that focus on war is that war happens everywhere, as well as conflict, isn't it? So I guess, I don't know about Chiazwa, but I guess, yeah.
I think it's interesting. The first time I read one of Lynn Nottage's plays was Necessary Targets. And that was also a place of conflict in Bosnia. And the one thing that we discussed in that first play is that conflict doesn't necessarily mean that you have bullets flying over your head. And in any sort of unrest, these are the kind of things that happen. There will be rapes, you know, there will be murders, there will be, so it was a really important story to tell, and it's happening everywhere in the world right now. Yeah.
Can I just go on a little bit, because
yes.
I've been in those parts of Congo myself, and a lot of my work has been with resolving conflicts in Sri Lanka, in Philippines, in South Sudan, and other places. So it actually touched me very deeply, because it actually is part of my own experience, not just outside Zimbabwe, but also inside Zimbabwe. But the thing I think that's very important is also to see the strength of people to be able to survive almost impossibly terrible things and still have the humanity in them. There's this Quaker phrase that there is something of God in everyone. But to bring that out is sometimes very difficult, and one of the things that came out is how people's humanity is there despite everything that happens to them.
I see a hand somewhere there. Or not?
No, there's no hand.
It was
a long play, so maybe I'll question and answer really short.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a hand.
What struck out for me was the direction and the approach in which a story was told, and that without being given a set or music or general stage directions to follow, without being given whole characters to simply sit back and relax and enjoy, we were sort of made to create them ourselves, and with the direction that we're being given in that area, we were given very clear images, but at the same time we had to make up the rest of it on our own. So certain subtleties that would have been missed, like a look or a grunt or something like that, we got very clearly, and it just helped bring the whole thing to life, whilst at the same time making us make up the story by ourselves.
And which character were you really interested in hearing more from in the play? Which character really struck you, or whose storyline really interested you? Yes.
Mama.
Mama. Why Mama?
She was very interesting in the sense that she always had a brave face on, but you could tell there's an in-depth story that got her to be that character that she's portraying now. Like, she's this tough cookie, but at the same time you can also tell that she's got a very soft center. So I'd like to know what led her to be that person.
Well, as Mama Nadi, she grew up in a setup that was not, that was really painful. The setup that she was in, give an example, like when she was growing up, she grew up in a family where there was much poverty. And she had to look after herself. She had to find her way. So she had to man up to be the man, the woman. And adding to that, she also went through heartbreaks from men. So that even made it worse for her to stand up for herself and say, you know, even love, I don't need it. I don't even think about it to fall in love because I've been hurt enough. And this doesn't even help to be with a man. So that's how Mama Nadi, as I saw it, that she became even more tough, going through those changes in her life.
So I just want to go back to what struck me about the play. As usually when we watch like a liberation type thing, we are often drawn to say this is the bad guy, this is the good guy. So in this case, what was really confusing, I was conflicted on which side should I pick, you know, because you've got on one side a very clear indication of what happens usually with governments in Africa or anywhere around the world, and then on the other side you've got the people who are supposed to be the liberators, but then they also have this side to them that kind of makes you question their motives. So in this particular one, it was really, really difficult because it kind of opened my eyes when you think of everything that's happening, like the elections in the United States, what's happening back home. You're like, okay, so who can I trust? Like, who? I don't know, maybe the author, the playwright, like, did he make it in such a way that we are supposed to be drawn towards a particular good guy or bad guy, or it's just bleak?
What I loved about Ruined is that everybody had a voice. And you didn't see her bias. She let every voice speak. She let the good guys speak. She let the supposed bad guys speak. And then you were able to see, like what Stuart said earlier on, you were able to see everybody's humanity. That we're all people. We're all ruined. Yeah.
Yes, at the back.
The relationship between Mama and Sophie, and also Sophie's operation. I was expecting to know what was the operation, but like I really love the relationship between the mom and Sophie, how she was protected.
Maybe the director can explain what the operation was concerning Sophie.
All right. Sophie had been mutilated. She was taken by the rebel soldiers, and she hadn't gone to a hospital. And the play refers to her smelling like rotten meat. So she needed to have an operation because she was struggling to walk because she'd been raped by so many soldiers. That was it.
Yes?
A big one for me was the hope. Everyone seemed to have hope. Mr. Adam wanted the diamond. The gentleman wanted the girl. Sophie wanted the operation. Forgive me, I forgot. Josephine. She wanted to go to the big city. Everyone sort of had their own place of hope there.
What I also found interesting in the play is how everyone had their take on democracy. And just want us to just briefly discuss on how democracy is treated by each of the characters in the play, considering that they are in a war-torn country, where one day this person is in power and the next thing someone else is in power.
What's your question again? Please repeat your question.
Like, how every character in the play had a different take on democracy.
Right.
And just your take on that.
Can I say Mama Nadi's take? Mama Nadi's take, maybe Mama Nadi will agree or disagree, but Mama Nadi's take is that this whole thing is not set up for women. Do I have to get a gun? You know, can you see me?
Either way you look at it, someone is losing.
Yes.
No one is winning.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh, there's another hand. Yes, say. Okay.
I view Mama Nadi's role a bit differently from what the director says. Why? Because Mama Nadi, as opposed to the general presumption that men have to take the bull by the horns and they have to generally direct how things are done. Mama Nadi doesn't look at herself as a woman who's underprivileged.
No,
to the
she
extent
doesn't.
that she has to stay down. She sees a situation where things are tight, right? But she has to go above that and make a way, make a living out of whatever it is that is happening.
Yes, no, I'm with you there completely. But what I'm referring to is when Mama Nadi says, does a woman have to get a gun to get a piece of land here? The bounty of this land is not only for the men. So she's what's the word?
She's taking her stake.
She's taking her stake, but she realizes that she has to be a man in this environment, which is disregarding all these women. What did you say? What is it?
He's saying what it is above the men.
She's above the man. Amen.
Oh, okay, maybe let's discuss what it means to be a man in this space where the person who has control is the one who has the gun, or the person who's controlling the one holding a gun. What does being a man in this space mean? Yes.
Well, I was going to come to your question about democracy, but to that, because in fact having a gun essentially is a way of overcoming your fear and having a way to make other people afraid, because you are so afraid that you need a gun. It's a symbol of fear, not a symbol of strength. And I think that that's something really important to see. I mean, we have this problem in this country of an army that's 12 times bigger per capita than Tanzania's army, for example. We don't need it. But people have guns because they are afraid, not because they are strong. But my sense of the democracy of that is that everyone has a voice. And that's a critical part of the democracy. Even if your voice is not heard equally, but to have that voice and to be able to make your voice heard in different ways is such a critical part of a democratic process. So even in the worst of situations, if people can express their voice, that's a contribution towards a democratization process. There's a wonderful phrase about democracy I heard recently, which is that if a democracy cannot change its mind, it's no longer a democracy.
Oh, that's a very interesting, that's a very interesting.
And speaking of guns, I found it quite interesting that I love the fact that at Mama Nadi's, all the men had to empty their guns when they got into the brothel. That was like the safe zone, you know, and she was in charge. I really enjoyed that part. I think there's no more questions.
If there are no more questions or contributions, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming through for this staged reading. Just quickly, in your programs, there's a short, a tiny slip of paper. If you could fill that for us, that would be really great. And then just leave it at the door there. And thank you to Kudzi, thank you to the cast, and thank you to the crew behind the scenes. Thank you so much.